What is going on, everybody? I go by the name of Kari, and I want to thank you guys for joining me here today on SneakerPhetish. As if he hasn't already dominated 2021 with some of the most incredible sneakers that we've seen this year, and the shoe that is still at the top of my list for Sneaker of the Year, the Year Air Jordan 3 raised by women, James Whitner has done it once again with another one of his brand's Social Status for one of the most incredible dunks I think I've ever seen before. Let's start with the packaging. Today we're talking about the very highly anticipated, much talked about Social Status Dunk Free Lunch Chocolate Milk. Now, before we get into the sneaker itself, we really got to start with the boxes. And my first thing that I want to say to you guys is, how are y'all still using drop front plastic boxes when you have packaging like this that's coming out from the brands? Like, are you guys seriously taking your shoes out of this incredible packaging and putting it inside of a clear box? It couldn't be me. All right, now we're not going to spend too much time on the packaging or the shoe at this point, because I know that you guys have probably seen the shoe 1,000 times at this point, but I did want to just dig into the details in case you haven't seen it, or in case you were waiting for me specifically to say it, which I don't know why, but I appreciate you being here. Now, the box is made to look like a carton of chocolate milk. That's first things first. The whole theme, the whole idea of this sneaker is chocolate milk from free lunches. We're gonna dig into free lunches because I got some things to say about that, but starting with the box here, old school font, old school writing on here really does a fantastic job of looking like one of those old school chocolate milk cartons that we all used to drink back in the day, myself included. You're looking at a free lunch kid, and you're looking at a product of the public school system of St. Louis, Missouri. Starting at the lid of the box here, Nike Social Status, 100% authentic, all that good stuff. Here's what's funny. This has 100% authentic, so I wonder if replica makers actually put that 100% authentic on there and feel a way about that. Anyway, one of the dope parts of the box to me, of course, is the maze when you flip the lid up just a little bit here. Very dope. I don't know if you guys ever used to do the mazes, but I used to do the mazes and the little games that were on the back of my milk cartons and cereal boxes and stuff like that. I was that kid. All right, probably one of my favorite parts of the box here is the pseudo nutrition facts on here that talks about what actually comes into the box and actually talks about the breakdown of the shoe. Everything from the main swoosh, how many they are, to the eye stays, laces, main panels, vamp, quarter, foxing, tongues, all that good stuff. And then of course it gets into work ethic, authenticity, and integrity. Again, prestige, power, prosperity, all which is kind of the ethos of the Whitaker Group's brands, APB, Prosper, Year, Social Status. James Whitner as a whole, he really drives this point home. That really is kind of the building blocks of all of his brands here. And so really interesting, very dope concept for this box, but that's enough about the box. Let's get into the shoe. Actually, I lied. Two more things about the box we have to talk about. First thing is the actual lunch tray that's inside of the box. Incredible design detail. I can't believe I almost forgot to tell you guys about that, but you see it has the milk carton right in the middle there. Honestly, the lower right was probably for the pizza. You remember those square pizzas that we used to eat back in the day? You guys remember what these school lunches look like. Fruit cocktail, pizza, milk, maybe a dessert, maybe a vegetable, something like that. Y'all remember. Not only that, but a big crowd favorite is the paper actually that comes inside the shoe as well. It has kind of the hand-drawn kids. To me, they represent kind of the poor kids. They actually have little Nikes on their feet with little swooshes on them with the Social Status and Nike swoosh emblem. Of course, in the middle here, you have the Nike and Social Status School District lunch menu. And the cool thing about it is you can see, of course, all the lunch menus have the word dunk at the end of the main course. Chicken finger dunk, taco dunk, hamburger dunk, all that good stuff. So it really transforms the dunks into food, just like the chocolate milk dunk as well. So very dope. Love the way that they did the packaging on this. I mean, A1 packaging. I mean, it really gets no better than that. Now let's get into the shoe. Boom. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Nike and Social Status Dunk, not Dunk Mid, Dunk Free Lunch Chocolate Milk. This shoe is so good that it makes me frustrated with a lot of other releases that Nike does, because obviously Nike is capable of coming out with some fantastic qualities, some fantastic releases, even with collaborations with elevated materials for a very low price point. $130 price point on these, and you get this incredible sneaker with these incredible materials on it. Let's jump in. All right, starting with the upper of the shoe here. Now you have a very interesting mix of materials here, all elevated premium materials here. Let's start with what James Whitner said was one of his favorite elements, which is the milky TPU gel swoosh. Very, very nice here. Now, when you push it in, you would think that it actually pushed in a little bit more, but I like the fact that it's not super squishy and super milky and goes all the way in like that. I like that it has some firmness about it. It's really, really nice, but very nice milky gel TPU swoosh here, looking like the strawberry milk itself. But obviously, as we all know, the real strawberry milk is coming later on. Now, underneath that swoosh here, you have what's known as YY Velvet. And everybody wants to know, what in the world is YY Velvet? On the quarter panels, wrapping around the collar of the back of the shoe here, and on the toe box, or as you saw from the box, the vamp. I tried to figure out exactly what YY means on YY Velvet. Honestly, I couldn't get that good of an answer, but this is some really good velvet on here. Now, offsetting that amazing velvet all over the sneaker here is nubuck. It's called diffuse nubuck on here, and that of course is on the back panels of the sneaker here, on the mud guards of the shoe, wrapping around the toe box, and then of course going down the eyelets of the sneaker as well. Very, very nice nubuck material, very soft to the touch. Taking a top down look at the shoe here, first things first, you notice is that YY velvet on the toe cap, or the vamp of the shoe, whatever you want to call it. Moving up from there, you have a YY velvet tongue here. You guys notice that brown on the tongue. The tongue is actually velvet as well. Laying on top of that brown velvet tongue here are the round poly laces. Now, there's a standard set of laces that you get on here. I like the way that these laces look. They almost remind me of braids. It actually looks very, very dope here. But if you're not a fan of those types of laces, you also do get a second set of kind of those more traditional dunk laces as well. So you can swap them out if you want kind of the pumpkin spice looking laces here, or if you want to keep the chocolate brown laces in, the round poly, you can do that as well. My choice is the round poly laces. I like how they offset against the eyelets. Moving up to the tongue tag here, one of my favorite elements of this sneaker here. I got to be a little bit careful because I have been hearing that it has been ripping off for some people. If you're not careful with your shoe here, you have the Tyvek Nike and Social Status lunch ticket tongue tag. Very, very dope element of this shoe. I like this part a lot. I usually show you guys the right shoe when we're taking a deeper look at the shoe here, but on the left shoe, you can see that the Social Status logo is actually on this Tyvek label as well. Now, if you guys don't know, in free lunch programs, one of the ways that you used to be able to get your free lunches was to get a ticket that you had to redeem for that lunch in the cafeteria. So it's really dope here that James Whitner really took this story of free lunch to that next level here and incorporated that little detail that we all remember very, very well. The ticket was kind of bittersweet because if you had the ticket, it meant that you were getting free lunch, and a lot of the kids like myself were kind of embarrassed to get free lunch. So you having the ticket used to kind of mean that you were one of the poor kids and you didn't really like that. Now, luckily, the systems have changed. They don't normally do separate lines for free lunches anymore. They've pretty much gotten away of using the ticket system, and now everybody usually uses just kind of a code or a pin that you punch in, and it tells the people whether or not you're getting free lunch or paid lunch. So it's a lot more discreet than it used to be. But back in the days when we were all growing up and we were coming up, this is what it was. You got your ticket. If you didn't have your ticket, you didn't get your lunch. Getting back to the shoe here, I even like on the back of the shoe here, the orange on the top of the tongue here is also an orange velvet. So they dyed it brown, they dyed it this canvas color, they dyed it orange, but they use that high quality velvet on so many different aspects of the shoe. Very, very dope. If you're wondering how I was able to know all of those materials like that, is because they're literally printed on the medial side of the shoe here. All of the elements, including Nike Sportswear and Social Status, are actually all put right here on the medial side of the shoe. I always thought that that was a really dope touch, kind of giving us an inside look, kind of an inside out look of the shoe, so you know exactly what it's made out of, but very, very dope. And of course, according to this here, you have the microbial textile lining inside of the shoe as well. And the sock liner has to be microbial because some of y'all be keeping your sneakers a little dirty and your feet a little funky. So luckily we have the microbial here to kind of eat away at that stuff, but wash your socks. As far as the midsole goes, you have kind of this sailish, kind of creamish, it's definitely an off-white colored midsole here. Now, fun fact as well, on the box, you'll notice that it talked about vamp, it talked about foxing. If you guys don't know exactly what foxing is, you see this line here that's right above the midsole and also right above that threading there that actually kind of bonds the upper of the shoe to the lower of the shoe here, this thick line right here. That thick line is what's known as foxing on a shoe. So if you don't know, now you know. Upper, foxing, midsole, outsole. And that gets us to the outsole of the shoe here. Very nice dunk outsole of the shoe here. Nice blue color here. I love the hit of the blue, and I was always thinking to myself, where in the world did they get the blue from? Now, the best thing that I could think of was that a lot of chocolate milk cartons these days really aren't cartons anymore, but they're in bottles, and a lot of the bottles, like say Nesquik, comes with a blue cap on it. So maybe the blue had to do with the blue cap that's on some of the new chocolate milk flavors and the new chocolate milks out here. Not quite sure, but that's my best guess. You guys can let me know what the blue blue means down in the comments. Also, it would be a bear to try to get out of this shoe, but there is a really nice insole here. Co-branded insole, I believe that's also a chocolate brown color of the Nike and Social Status collaborative logo as well. So very, very fly. You guys remember I talked about that sell by label there? It's right there in the inner medial part of the shoe here. Sell by fall of 2021. I mean, the details just go on and on and on. I love it. And last but not least is this. A lot of people have wondered what in the world this is, but I believe it's a coin purse. I believe it's a coin pouch here that you would use to keep your school lunch money in. Something just like small you could put into your pocket and make sure you don't lose your lunch money or you don't lose your lunch ticket. Since of course this is the free lunch dunk, this might not be exactly for the pouches, but this may be to make sure that you don't lose your ticket. And that's pretty much it when it comes to the Nike and Social Status dunk free lunch chocolate milk. Now this is a really, like I said, an incredible shoe with an incredible story behind it. So if you guys need a little bit of backstory on the shoe itself, like I mentioned, based off of the free lunch program that actually started nationally, I believe in 1946. President Harry S. Truman at the time signed the National School Lunch Program into law. Now, there's a lot of different offshoots from that, but you know it wouldn't be me if I couldn't give you guys a quick history lesson. So let's run it down. Post-World War II was a very difficult time in this country. If you guys remember, a lot of people were having a lot of difficulty getting back up on their feet. Now, part of those problems also meant that children were not able to eat because their families weren't making enough money to be able to feed their children, and that went for lunches, breakfasts, and things of that nature. So, as I mentioned before, Harry S. Truman signed the National School Lunch Program into law in the mid-40s. Now, shout out to Harry S. Truman because he actually was one of the presidents that to me was very progressive, especially when it came to the civil rights movement. Now, let's talk about that a little bit because, like I mentioned, this occurred in 1946 during a time where segregation was still alive and well in this country. So one of the things that ended up happening was that the school lunch program did work for the kids that were able to access the lunches, but because a lot of the urban areas or a lot of the lower income areas, their schools were set up in a way when they were first built or maintained that they didn't even have cafeterias in them. If you didn't have a cafeteria, you weren't able to participate in the program. So what about all those kids that unfortunately were mainly minorities that weren't even able to participate in that program? Well, there's a group known as the Black Panthers that stepped in. If you guys know, you know about that free lunch program and free breakfast program as well. Now, I'm not gonna get too deep into the Black Panthers because I know a lot of people think it's super political and super radical and this, that, and the third, but I'm gonna tell you what the Panthers did do. They fed a lot of kids a lot of breakfast, and the program ended up expanding across the country, and at one point they were feeding up to 10,000 children every day, and not just lunch, but they were feeding them breakfast, lunch, and dinner in a lot of places as well because their families, again, weren't able to either put food on the table or they were working later. So shout out to the Panthers for that. Apparently that got a lot of attention, and that actually expanded into a national breakfast program under the USDA as well, much later on after the free lunch program was established. Free lunch is something that's still affecting a lot of us to this day. It's unfortunately a sad reality that a lot of children are still having to deal with. A lot of children are still suffering from malnutrition, from not being fed the right types of things. Thankfully, to other programs like Michelle Obama's program that revamped a lot of things like the caloric intake, the types of food that are being eaten back in 2012, now we have a lot better and healthier meals because I'm gonna tell you, I don't know how in the world we were stuffing our faces with chocolate milk and pizza every day and going out for recess. Like, I don't know how my stomach didn't explode while I was in school, but shout out to lactose intolerance these days because if I even look at some pizza and some chocolate milk, my stomach is gonna be like, nah. But these sneakers really speak to that experience that unfortunately happened to a lot of us, and it's one of those things that we kind of hold near and dear to us. There was an incredible short film about 7 minutes long that Social Status released a couple of weeks before the actual drop of this sneaker, a short film that actually documented kids during the summertime banding together and going to get their free lunch. Now, the dope thing about that was that James Whitner has this way of including his community in a lot of his passion projects as well, and if you notice, when they were handing out the free lunches in the neighborhood, the woman had on a summer youth cafe apron. Now that's an incredible program, also sponsored by the USDA, that's in the Pittsburgh area, that provides free lunches to children during the summer months, which is a really dope thing as well. Now, the story to me seemed a little bit disjointed because on the paper you have a school district lunch menu, but then in the short film, it was the summertime and the kids were getting free lunch during the summertime. So whenever you're getting free lunch, however you're getting free lunch, it's very, very dope. So I don't want to seem like I'm nitpicking over that. But what I will say is that in the beginning of of the short film, there's like this poem that's being recited and narrated in the background, and it talks about there being joy in the struggle. And I really think that James Whitner has embodied the joy of the struggle in a lot of his projects this year, not just the ones that have already come out, but the ones that are also planned for the future. James Whitner is not done with his sneaker releases, even though we've gotten the I'm in Year 3s, which also spoke to there being joy in the struggle. We got these now, we have the Strawberry Milks, we have a Jordan 1 that's coming out, and then we also have another project that's coming out by James Whitner that I won't speak too much about, but maybe if you guys can read between the lines, you'll understand what it is. There truly is joy in the struggle, and I think the last point that I want to make about these sneakers and why they're so special, especially to somebody like me, is that James Whitner really took a story of struggle and overlaid it with premium materials. And I think there's a very interesting story that I don't know if he was meaning to go this way in the messaging of the shoe or not, but turning something that normally is seen as bad and poverty-stricken and things like that, and laying such premium materials over it, it really makes it look beautiful. It makes the struggle look beautiful. And that's what I take away from the artistic vision of these sneakers, is that these make the struggle look absolutely beautiful. And shout out to James Whitner for actually putting such elevated materials on something that speaks to a hard time in a lot of our lives here. A lot of us are stronger because of the struggle that we've been through, and while we're not trying to recreate the struggle, we can look back on the struggle and appreciate what it did to us in making us so much stronger today. Now, the last part, as I mentioned when I first showed you guys these shoes, this is not a dunk mid. So just so you guys know, the only dunk mid actually that I was able to find, I think it was from years and years ago, it was a women's dunk mid tweed, and most dunk mids actually end up being SB mids if you guys actually kind of look it up. So if you know of any regular dunk mids that are non-SBs with the strap on them, let me know, but it's actually really hard to find other dunk mids. But two things that everybody still is getting wrong about this shoe, and I want us to dig a little deeper, is that number one, again, these shoes aren't a mid, and number two, these shoes have nothing to do with donuts. Shout out to all of the publications and the blogs when these first came out that said that these had something to do with donuts. As a matter of fact, Social Status even poked fun at that idea of everybody leaking it out early by saying there's no free donuts in free lunch, which I never got a free donut in my free lunch, I'll tell you that much. So guys, we gotta be careful trying to put all the early stories out there and everybody want to be the first, because a lot of times we can get it wrong. But if you were lucky enough to get your hands on this shoe, hold on to them, because these really speak to something really, really special. Now, that brings me to my final point. I don't remember if I said it was my final point or not, but that brings me to my real final point here. Resale on this shoe. We got to talk resale because this is YouTube and resale is just a thing now. Why aren't these selling for more money than people would think that they are? I think the answer to that is actually pretty simple. Number one, a lot of people just don't relate to this shoe. And number two, a lot of people don't like the cut of this shoe. A lot of people wish that this was a dunk low, even if not an SB, just a regular dunk low. And a lot of people got upset that it was a bit elevated. So that knocked a lot of people out of the game that might have paid big dollars in resale for it. And then on top of that, like I mentioned, a lot of people this shoe just doesn't resonate with them. Maybe people don't like the materials, or they just didn't do free lunch. And so to a lot of people who weren't involved in free lunch and who really don't connect with these sneakers emotionally, it's just another shoe. And it's a shoe that is a dunk that's not a dunk low, and it's a shoe that a lot of people just probably aren't going to be wearing for real. So I think that really is the reason why the hit on the resale is low. But good news for all of us that really do want this shoe, because the prices aren't out of control right now. So grab them up. James Whitner has an interesting ability to make fantastic sneakers that make the world stop, but aren't worth a ton of money on the resale market. And I think that has to do with the fact that stories still are not dead. Storytelling is very much alive out here. And I love the fact that James Whitner is telling stories with his products that overshadow the hype around the product, if that makes sense. So chocolate milk dunks raised by women I'm in year 3s are more than just a good looking shoe. They tell a really deep story, and thank goodness he's telling those stories, number one, to keep them alive, and number two, to keep down the resale. All right guys, that's pretty much all I gotta say about these. As you can tell, these are one of my favorite sneakers to drop this year. These will probably be number one on my sneaker of the year list, except for the I'm in year Jordan 3s raised by women. So it's interesting because my number one and number two spot both belong to James Whitner. Now it's time for you guys to sound off down in the comments. Let me know what you guys think about the free lunch dunks, chocolate milk. Are you guys looking forward to these? Do you guys already have these? Are you still waiting on your shipping for these? Are you gonna grab the strawberry milks? How do you guys feel about these? Sound off down below if these were a cop or a hard pass. I'd love to know. Of course, write it down in the comments. Make sure that you click on that subscribe button so we can welcome you into the Sneaker Phetish family to make sure you don't miss out on any more heat that comes through like these, because I guarantee you I got a lot more heat on the way. As always, I want to thank you guys for joining me here today on Sneaker Phetish, taking a look at these with me, unboxing them with me for a couple of minutes. I go by the name of Kari. This is the Social Status and Nike Free Lunch Dunk Chocolate Milk. And until next time, I'm out.